This is part two of the COVID-19 Improv Summit on the globalization of improv. It follows a conversation in part one, interestingly enough, where we had panelists from all over the world talking about the impact of globalization and their perspective on it in the world of improv. And this continues that conversation. There is not really a separate topic, but there are a number of additional thoughts, and we do get into some new territory that I think was very valuable and impactful. So encourage you to listen in all the way through and get those insights along the way. So let's get right into part two. So we're back on this episode, and we're just going to continue the conversation that we had, and we're going to start with Helena.
Yes, I wanted to add a perspective of COVID virus situation and also online improv, because earlier I couldn't mention it because I forgot. So Korea also had the early stage with China. So we started COVID in January, and nowadays it's been 4 months, 5 months, and it's getting better and better. So I think this is a hope for worldwide people, because these days, for 10 days, we have less than 10 COVID virus patients right now. So we're starting slowly, we are getting back to the normal life, not fully, but slowly. We started to work outside, and we go for walk and small group gathering. So we started the offline meeting, less than 10 people right now. It's only just since last week, because 3 weeks ago we had election, and so many people voted, and experts predicted after voting date, after 2 weeks, there will be huge coronavirus patient again. But it turns out we have no one from the election situation. We have no 0-1. So it's very good news for everybody, I think. So you guys will maybe come back for the normal life. I hope everyone in worldwide. And also, during the 4 months, we really needed gathering people, and we wanted to talk. So we started online as everyone did. So my feeling, my thoughts about online improv is totally different genre, I feel. So it's improv, of course, but very different. For example, when we were on stage, we cannot do the face one, or we cannot do the Zoom background, or Hawaii things, or Mars and Earth things. So we also created new forms with the online only. So it's also new invention or new discovery for us. So I think this is a good point of view in this situation.
Helena, did you meet with your improv team in person yet?
We met last week. It's been for a while, and last week was the first step, but still we wear mask, and we use sanitizer, we check our temperature, and we try to distance at least 1 meter, but it was hard. Yeah.
Yeah, I would think that would be an interesting way to come back. So, well, thank you for sharing that. Felipe, let's hear from you again.
I just want to talk a little bit about the experience of the virus here, because it's like Colombia is not a very rich country. So the main issues, more than the virus itself, is the economy. So there's a lot of people that wouldn't take care, wouldn't stay home because they need to try to find the basics. They live from the daily money they earn selling stuff in the street, for example, or like, so it's really interesting, the situation here. So you can imagine how that affects all layers. And also, it's very interesting how I've been thinking a lot about we as a species. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Species, that's the word. Because humans are like the creativity, how it works. It's like a reflect of how humans work. So in this situation, I've seen how from myself it's been like like it exploded. I want to do 1,000 things. I've been working on videos, on in training, and trying stuff with my improv group. We have rehearsals and we try stuff, and that's great because it's like how powerful it is for humans to have the creativity. And also when it goes to the dark side, it's very dangerous, and we have proofs of those things. So yeah, that in one side, like I've been very, as I told you, very like I don't want to go in this online thing. As soon as this started, I got like a lot of messages like let's do this, and as Joe said, like first I need to go inside and understand how I'm feeling about all this thing, and then I will go out probably and do my stuff. So I think it's very important to take the time to understand as humans what is happening, and as a human, how this is affecting me, what is this making me think and feel about life, and hopefully how is changing me for better, no? So yeah, I closed that idea there, and just connecting to the past thing about teaching and learning. When Patty was speaking, I got this idea that it's very important as teachers to be aware of teach people to learn. Like the typical thing: don't give people fish, teach them how to fish. But if you are able to teach people to be open and to understand that what you're saying is just one point of view that you have developed, and you have accumulate knowledge in that specific point of view, or some, or a mix, that point is as valid as any other point that you can find in the world, and that point is just one. So I think that is really important. Like you're giving tools, and then people can play with the tools, but you're not saying any truth. It's just one point of view.
Just a personal question, Felipe. Do you find that it takes more energy to teach in this new format now that you have started doing it? is it a harder thing, or is it the same, easier?
I think I haven't had enough experiences with this to answer that question. But I do know already that I miss. We are, as Latin Americans, we are very hugging persons and physical persons, and so the only thing I can tell is that I miss connections and being close to people and hugging people.
I saw a study that suggests that when you're looking at people on screen, and especially when you've got a number of people, it's disconcerting in the sense that there's so many more things to pay attention to, as opposed to in improv, you want to focus typically on your scene partner, and you have that one-to-one connection. Well, now we're having a one-to-many connection, and we don't have these other things. So it's a new thing. So let's go to Patty, and then we'll go to Joe after.
Thanks. A couple of things bubbling up. So to follow a little bit on what Felipe was just saying about teachers, I really think, it's our job to kind of inspire thought. So to provide tools, but inspire thought and questioning. Our job as a teacher isn't to come in and give the absolutes. It might be your personal discovery. It might be your code that you follow. It might be the way you work, but it shouldn't be the overall defined the way everyone should. And I think that's, really important in improvisation and teaching in general. If we can inspire our students to be curious and to question, and then to take what we've shared and apply it, use it, explore it in their own way, I think that provides a healthier community than coming in and saying, follow my 10 rules because this is what I'm going to tell you what to do. Doesn't mean that you can't be passionate about what you do. Doesn't mean that you can't come in and say, I believe this. Because I think a passionate teacher is a great teacher, but a passionate teacher should also be open to be questioned and to have other opinions in the room. So that on the teaching front. On the teaching online front, or being online or performing online, there are a lot of possibilities. It's a new toy. It's a new tool. And I think it's really serving a function like right now. How many different countries are having a conversation right now? But I do think conversation and connection are different. And we're having a conversation right now, and I feel connected in thoughts and ideas and words, but I don't feel the connection of space. This is not a space. This is a bubble of time. This is not a shared space for me personally. And when I'm teaching, I really rely on looking at the body language of people, who's comfortable, who's present, who's feeling a bit uncomfortable or awkward, where's the fear, who's connecting, where's the inspiration. That is such an important component of our work, is embracing the individuality of every student. Who a person is your first offer as a teacher. And through this, I'm getting a small component of that information. Now, I could still use it. So I'm not trying to be critical of the new tool. I'm just being aware that this tool is very different. Online is not theater. And a lot of the improvisation techniques that we have are about performance, live performance. So we are using tools in one area differently, and that's fine. However, I do want to say to the improvisers out there that are going, I don't like this. This is not my thing. I'm feeling really conflicted, compromised, but everybody's saying it's great. We can connect, we can play. It's wonderful. It's okay if it's not your wonderful. You're not a bad improviser because this is difficult. You haven't failed as an improviser because you're having a hard time adjusting to this, or you don't want to adjust to this. People have different relationships with technology, and there's different generations of people with technology. For some people, online social has been the way they've communicated since a very young age. For other people, it's still new. And there are so many different platforms of communication, so it's okay if this isn't your thing. You're not failing as an improviser. You are still a part of the community. Some people don't have the technology to be able to use this. So as we look at creating open spaces and inclusive spaces for people in theater, we also have to look at this as being inclusive. And part of that inclusiveness is there are some people right now that are going to be sitting on the sidelines, and they are still welcome and they are still included, and it's absolutely fine because this can be exhausting. That's all.
Joe?
There's just a couple of things. I think I'll first extract what I think Patty said, just to boil down one piece of that is it's not this isn't the same sense of connection for many of us, including me, but this is a form of connection. And then for some people who are used to connecting in this way, whether they're introvert or visual learner or whatever, this could very well be connection for them. But for those of us that are kinesthetic and that like to need to be in the same room and have our intuition come into play, I wouldn't say it's not. This is just different. I definitely can connect in a way here. An example I would give about the difference, because I see Kaisa here, is the first time we got to play together as a duo was in a comedy sports match in Connecticut. And so it was Kaisa and I against a team of 4 younger women, and we really had never played together. But we've loved each other since we've met, and our energy is our energy. And we have that thing that is real life in-person people who have kinesthetic connection. And our set just killed, and we ended up doing a song a cappella, and it was great. But the different example is that team challenged us in 30 seconds to make them cry. And we did. And it's because they were 2 people who loved each other, who had no other choice but to break up and to part. And that distance and that kinesthetic experience, that being in the same room, made them cry, especially the person that suggested it. And I don't think you could do that online. It doesn't make online worse. It just makes it not appropriate for that form of theater, for that suggestion, that whatever. And so and there are some people who are absolutely allowed to not want to give that suggestion, take that suggestion, cry because Kaisa and I made them cry. That can also not be your thing. But for us, that is clearly our thing. And so that's, I would just offer that up as just a piece of dynamic that I'm personally missing. Where teaching online is concerned, well, let me back up and just say, I've always for a long time, and actually since Patty and I started playing together almost 10 years ago, have made it a point to say, I'm going to teach you a way to improvise, but I'm not going to teach you the way to improvise. And to Felipe's point about helping people learn, if I can show you a way to improvise and then make that or help make that accessible to the different ways that people learn here, then I'm helping people learn to fish without saying this is how you fish. And then in the online thing, because yes, Cheng Zheng said, hey, do you want to teach a thing? And we talked a little bit about it. I had to figure out what it was that this thing was. And I had to start with what is this instead of what have I been doing for 40 years? Okay, what is this delivery system? What am I passionate about in terms of how I play here? And there's just a lot of things it wasn't obvious to me what it was that I would be passionate about playing here. but to John's point, you know, I said this in our first thing, was like, it's about human connection. And whether it's about, hey, I want to get with people that are all going to have a barbecue, that are all going to cook out, and we're going to do that thing here that we might do in real life. Or Will Luera in Sarasota is having like a campfire, and he has a computer outside, and there's a campfire, and he has people in, and we have a campfire. Like, that's something like, oh, I could do that if I didn't live in Chicago and you never knew what the weather was going to be. But I think it's we can show people a way to learn. And I think if we're going to be teachers online, the advice would be like, figure out what about this given can have us be passionate to give who we are into this, and not think about, I'm going to teach what I'm missing because it's somewhere else. And there's my thoughts.
Yeah. I don't know if this is true or not, but looking at who is participating and who isn't on an individual level is so varied. But it strikes me that there are a lot more folks who may not have had as much opportunity or presence or respect in their communities, who are stepping forward now. This is not a complete thought, but I feel like it's worth paying attention to whether we gave the right amount of space to people in our communities. And now that there is a new medium and new space, that they're taking advantage of it. And I don't think it's just based on who's comfortable or not, or who this is harder for mentally or not. I think that's a lot of it. Maybe that's most of it. But I feel like there's something there to pay attention to. Maybe I'm off. I don't know. I guess we'll let it sit. You guys can tell me whether you think I'm way off base or not. But
Can I say one more quick thing?
Yeah.
And that is one thing that I love doing when I travel internationally is playing, but also teaching, where people who have a different mother tongue play a scene together in their home language. Yeah. And part of what it is we don't need to speak each other's verbal language, or somebody said it was a transcript. It's brilliant. We don't need to speak each other's personal language to understand each other. If we're paying attention to each other through love and on a human level, we can get the nature of what we're communicating about on a human level. And I'm not so sure, or I'm not inspired to try that online yet. Thank you for letting me put that in.
Sure. All right, Nick, we'll go to you, Kaisa, and then Sheng.
Okay, thanks. Well, I think I might just pick straight up on what you said there, Whit. Because another thing about our Imprevention Festival that delighted me, kind of unexpectedly, was because we had mainly mixer shows and shows that people had learnt from directors from workshops. In that show, people, there was always one or two cast members, perhaps from a bigger city, that had been, they're good improvisers, but they'd been overlooked for central ensembles and things like that. But people coming from overseas, great directors from overseas, they don't know who these people are. They've just decided on their cast for a show from what they've seen in the workshop or who's come along. And so what I can say is I took great delight in seeing those sorts of people get selected by a Joe or a Felipe or a Patty, and then be in a great show with all these known people, do a great job. But I'll tell you what, when they went back to their hometown, then they were in the main ensemble. So we can pretty quickly. So I think you're absolutely right that no matter how giving and sharing we think we are, there is a part of nature's and company nature that is protective and delays progress for some people that could have progress faster. And so I guess, yeah, one of the great things about where we find ourselves at this moment is it's a little bit of an equalizer again for people to appear. So I think, yeah, we need to embrace that. I fall a little bit into the Felipe category of I feel like if I go online to teach, it's just not going to be as good a product as face-to-face, and that I've been so obsessed. Well, not obsessed. Yes, obsessed. But I feel like most of what I've been working towards is face-to-face, human connection, live, almost in response to where society was going, becoming more of a screen culture, people forgetting how to talk to each other and so on. And now we've got to reverse that. So I'm still trying to work out how to embrace the new opportunities. So one thing that happened actually was that our local government here in my region of Australia created some small grants for artists to say, well, if we just gave you some money in this difficult time, how would you spend your time? You know, you can use it for your living expenses. You don't have to propose a project, but what would you do? And so I applied for that and decided that, look, what I will do actually, and am doing, is taking a step back rather than rushing to put what I normally do or what first comes to mind onto the screen, to take a step back and go, well, let's use this time. Let's consult with some video people. Let's consult with some online course people, and try to work out, well, what is a genuinely high quality, useful product that I can put online. So I'll be much slower than most people getting it up, but I'm hopeful that this isn't going to go away, this online learning thing. So I'm hopeful that at least in my untechy situation that I will improve what I can present that way. But it also got me thinking about how we come out of this, because I still feel extremely passionate about the human-to-human connection, how we learn to become vulnerable and intimate with each other, and consensual in that, and respecting each other face to face. And it strikes me that our world is upside down now in terms of what we're told is what is healthy to do. Here in Australia, and certainly in my city, over summer, we were blanketed in bushfire smoke. And so we were told, okay, here's the healthy thing to do. Stay indoors, never go outside, and sit on your butt, not doing much so that you don't have to breathe too much. That was the new healthy, instead of go outside and exercise. And now the new healthy, with very, very strong advertising and pushing, is stay away from each other, maintain a distance, try not to breathe on anyone by talking at them too close, and so on. And already you can see people's behavioral change when you do see them face to face. So when we come back to the face-to-face environment, we're going to have more people even more anxious about being vulnerably connected to each other, even more people who are afraid of touch and so on. And so I'm not proposing that I have particular answers to that, but I'm saying that's an area that I really want to work on too in this time. How do we come out of this zone and help people again readjust to that face-to-face thing that we love, as well as embracing the online thing. And as a final thing, I just wanted to say, we talked a lot about embracing the change and the differences from other cultures to learn from them. And we also talked about what seems to be the opposite of maintaining your own culture and not letting go of that in the face of what seems to be strong influences. I just want to close by saying I think they're the same thing, because if you learn from one other influence, two, maybe three other influences, yes, you can have this feeling of being inadequate, a fraud, learning from something bigger than yourself. But if you get enough different influences coming in, and that's just how you think. I love to get different influences. I love my processes to be challenged. Then eventually it comes to the question, wait a minute, well, who am I as an improviser? And eventually your answer becomes, well, I'm okay. And these are the things about me or my culture or my group that are actually different. You end up answering that question, and your acceptance from being involved in shows in different languages with people that you don't understand, and all of these types of experiences that we've talked about, and nothing goes wrong, you're accepted, leads you to discover your own strength as an improviser, leads you to discover that you do have your own identity, and leads you to have the confidence to put forward your own identity. So my message to improvisers listening is you do have a cultural identity. You may not see it because you've grown up with it. It just seems something normal, perhaps boring to you, but it's there. And by engaging and exposing yourself to all these different cultures and influences, you might rediscover what's interesting about you that you can present to us and that we need to hear from you.
Very nice. I'll just note in the chat, and just to kind of piggyback on a piece of what you said, Nick, we have a role now, I think, as improvisers to help people through this time. We will have a role afterwards, and Felipe mentioned that we can be helpful on the way back in reconnecting with people. Very true. Very good words. Kaisa, let's move to you.
Yes. One thing that came to mind from what Nick was just saying right now is like, hopefully, partially, it's also when we have been away from each other physically for so long, there is the need to be together. So maybe even one of my students said at some point, maybe our culture will change somehow and the cheek kisses will become a thing in Finland, which is absolutely not the thing at the moment. And I thought that was wonderful to think about. Maybe it changes the way we miss each other's physical presences. So maybe that is also partially can be a wonderful, beautiful thing. And we can be helpful in that for sure. A few more things that came to my mind from all of this. Someone was writing about the fact that when you meet people on Zoom or on other kind of platform like this, everyone is high status the whole time. And I thought that it was a very interesting idea of like, we are looking at each other's faces the whole time, and it's here and that can be very draining. That can be very, very tiring as well. So then I wanted to say, when people were saying like, they started like, okay, I need this time to think first what is happening happening and how I'm feeling about it, and then slowly getting into it. I think that to me, it has been the opposite way. And I also want to say to other people that it's okay also if it goes in a way that first you're like, okay, let's do this. Let's change this. Let's go into this thing and yes, be curious, change everything. And then slowly you're like, oh, this is exhausting. I'm tired. I can't do this. And that is also completely okay. The way you are feeling about everything that's going on in the world and the way it affects you is okay. So I want to put that out there as well. Is like, and we're living in a situation where we probably in this way have never been before. And it's okay to feel the way you feel about it. One more thing that I think at least Joe was mentioning about the closeness and that kind of intimacy, and Patty as well, about whether it's being together or if it's just a time where we are sharing or having a discussion, right? I got to teach a workshop on the ImproFest online thing that they're doing in Germany, or everywhere in the world, I guess, but that they're hosting from there. And so I wanted to try how it is when the topic of the workshop is closeness and intimacy online. And I thought that it was quite interesting to see how, because we were actually looking at it from the perspective of like, we are now globally in a situation where we cannot be physically close even to those people, to a lot of those people that we would like to be, our families or our friends or our loved ones. And I thought that it was really interesting to see how people wanted that connection and how they would apply that to the situation that we are at the moment. And how we are, even in my real life, I usually tend to see my family, my siblings, my parents, people in our family, maybe 2 times a year, if it's a good year, that we all get together. And this has made me, and I believe a lot of other people as well, wanting to see and be in connection with other people more than maybe in our busy day-to-day lives normally. And I'm truly hoping that that is something that will continue to be so after this, because we're going to enter into a world which I believe that will not be the same normal world that we were in before, but instead it's going to be a new version of the world. And if we as humans don't completely beat it up, then we will be part of it in the future as well. And what will remain is this need for connection and this need for being in contact with other people. And as Felipe was saying, we will be able to do that with improv, to have that connection with each other. And because through that and through this experience as well, empathy, I think, is one of the biggest things and the biggest slogans of this whole thing. And I think that probably I have said everything that I was supposed to say at this point. So thank you very much.
You did it right, Kaisa. Cheng, let's go to Cheng, Sven, and then John will close with you.
Thank you. I think the fact is that we cannot come back to a normal life after this coronavirus is gone. So whatever it is, and we go along with that. And the way we are, all the artists making the arts, is that it would be like synchronizing with the way people live in their life. So I would think really digital life, like we are living like a digital world. Therefore, like also we have like teenagers grow up to adults. So how would they socialize their life or do the connection between the human being? That would impact how we make the improvisation or the art form towards that, no matter what it is. I would think at this moment, the more people we are engaging, the more ideas will come out. The new solution will come from there. I think we would trust how would that be in the future, and sticking to the fact that we cannot come back to normal life. Like we are trying to normalize it by keeping on doing what we are doing, like we are meeting together. Like what also the Nick mentioned, that maybe there's a different behavior when I meet together, or we are still like hesitated in the heart, like we are wearing the masks, or we're not, or we have this kind of habit, or we are keeping a social distance, or we are not keeping that. Or like Philip, like we are like hugging each other, or we'll think about that. So that's very tiny and subtle things we would consider. I think something different other than that. As an improviser and or improv teachers, I think we would really like maybe pay attention on that. Something very something like we are, in a way, we are changing ourselves, and we are like at the same time we are impacting the others. So what that would be, and well, I think it's very curious. It's very curious. Let's see. There might be new opportunities. Might be more like doors opened to all of us. Just let's see it.
Yeah. Sven, let's go to you. Thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to say two things. One regarding the improv online thing, and the other one regarding language. And I think Helena also wants to say something about it. I didn't see you mention her, so I would love to hear what she has to say. To me, this is a temporary thing, the whole online, the whole Corona thing. I have a very strong belief in science, in all the doctors. I think they will find a cure and then later a vaccine, and this is just a temporary thing, and we can just go back to normal. And for me, that means I have the chance to do other stuff I want to do, spend more time with family, like I said, do chores around the house. So I'm very happy with all the improvisers that are doing all these improv things. Great, do it, have fun with it. Not for me, not right now. If this will go on for like 5 years, I'll probably change my mind. But maybe I'll just do something completely different. I don't know yet. But you know, I'll see. I'll just see when we get there. What I do notice that for me, it's harder to stay connected with online things, because I think it's a chance to listen better, because I'm not every time someone's saying, oh yeah, I got to add this to it. And at the same time, if someone speaks for too long, my mind just wanders off and I'm somewhere else. So that makes it harder. Also, I think that normally I like teachers that are more facilitated than teachers in real workshops. So not just saying, this is what I have to bring and this is the way you should do it. And I think there's a risk of doing it online where you become more of a teacher that just states things, because it's harder to feel the room, to interact with it. So I think that's a challenge. And I wouldn't know how to do that for myself, so that's hard. So these are my points regarding the improv online. I'm very happy that people are trying all this stuff out, and well, maybe I'll join you later, not for now. But I also wanted to say something about language. I think there's a strong North American influence in improv, and it's their their first language. It's not my first language, and research shows that if you speak in a different language, you actually have a different personality, because my mind is not as fast. I don't know the right words, so maybe I'm a bit more shy than I'm in Dutch. So part of my culture gets lost, and I think the risk is that if I get taught by people who teach in English, that my English improviser takes it with me, but then when I do my Dutch improvisation, I don't take it with me. So the transfer might be different. And also the other way around. So what I do in Dutch improv, I might not bring to the table when I do it in English. And I feel that there might be a risk where we all get kind of the same US, Canada style improv when we are at festivals, because the English is the language there. And I don't have a solution to it, but I would love for people to really stick to their own culture and somehow bring that along when they speak English, when they do it in a different language. So like Kaisa, I would love to see your dark Finnish shows. And I noticed that I find it hard to bring my Dutch improv style into English. So I really hope the people that go around teaching a lot really take this into account, because that is very important to me, because I love the different cultures, the different styles of improv from all around the world. So please don't become all the same. Please don't. That is it for me.
Well, I think that's that's a very important observation in terms of when it is not your first language that you are learning from and experiencing, and that is something that in the U.S. and Canada that we don't have as much exposure to. You think about the strong history in Latin America in Spanish speaking and Portuguese and all of these influences that typically have been consumed by us to the extent it's happened in English. You know, what can we do? Is there going to be a technological leap that will allow for that translation to happen so that it's more, you know, first language to first language in the ear? Just like Zoom is only so good of technologically getting us connected, maybe it'll be better if we can hologram each other one of these days or something. I don't know. In the interest of time, let's go to John, and then we will give Helena the capper on what she has. So go ahead, John.
Perfect. And I got a couple of notes. One is 50 Cent is posting like crazy on Instagram. Check that out. I also wanted to say about there's so many good things. But one thing I just want to come back to, I guess what I said at the top was, this is selfishly, but also like long-term, is going to teach us about who we are individually and how we relate to other people as a definer, rather than, you know, what we do or you know, all these classic things that kind of, or what specific, or what country we're from as a definer of like who we are as a person. We can kind of start to think beyond that. What I'm excited about is for the people, like you started to hint at it, the people that were not involved before, or were on the peripheral, or just kind of, they've done a couple of jams, but now they are active, and I couldn't be more happier because they found a way to make it comfortable for them. I think that's an opportunity, like Felipe was saying, that we can all be of service to each other in some way. We can connect people. We can just be of service by giving people attention, to just say like, hey, I see you, I hear you, let's do this jam. And that's a big deal, and that offers a lot of value. And I think that's a really cool thing. The other part that is so good is I'm so curious, and I was so like, how am I going to get on the ground floor to find out what's happening in so many different global issues? One of them that I was curious about was the Africans in China. How was I going to know about how the African, the way it's portrayed on the news is one thing, but I wanted to talk to somebody that was Chinese. That was like in China, real life, day to day. What's their story? So I got on Tinder, and I bought like a monthly account, and I dropped my little thing, and I dropped it in Hong Kong, and I started swiping. And I can send you guys the screenshots. I got pretty lucky. I did all right. A couple of people, but one woman also got on there for the same purpose, was to link up with a Black person or African person to say how wrong it was. That was her whole intention. And that was my whole intention too, was to just hear from somebody who is actually there, who is a human, who I know we have no the only reason we're coming together is Tinder during the pandemic, so we're not going to get together like that. So the whole purpose was really just to share, our concerns about social justice issues. So I feel like we have a shortcut right to the people in these places, that we have these ideas of like, oh, they're from America, they're like this. Oh, they're from Amsterdam, we can just kind of like cut right to the people and make these like really interesting connections. Now, if she was comfortable to do like a video chat, I would love to have done that interview and then maybe have like another improvised team, if I wanted to take the next step. But the heart of it was that I was genuinely curious about a thing. And thank you, technology, and thank you, Tinder, that I was able to satisfy that. Thank you, Joe. Worldwide, I'm sexy. Worldwide, yes.
Well, I guess that's we're going to look for a sponsor now for this because that's quite a shout out to Tinder. It's connecting people on every level.
Yeah, it really is. And I guess, not to get academic about it, but at the heart of it, I was able to like bypass all these borders and these fences and things that used to like hold me back personally from wanting to connect. And a lot of us here, we have the luxury of traveling, or we know some people, around the world that we can make these connections. But there's a lot of people in my community that don't. They know people in their city, and that's it. Improv in their city, that's it. So there is a lot of value in making that idea of humanity more and more crystal and clear, because I think we have a general idea what that means, but we can make it more clear for ourselves. That's it. Thank you.
Elena, let's go to you, and then we'll close.
Yeah, thank you for giving me a chance. And thanks, Sven, for saying the language barrier things. Yeah, I really totally agree with your opinion. I also use Korean and English, and also I started with English improv first, and English teacher taught me improv. So I have two identities. I have an English improviser, I have a Korean improviser. I'm not saying characters. As an improviser, I'm very different as an English one and Korean one. My Korean team, improv team, watching me doing English performing, they say, whoa, is that Helena? It's different one, totally different. And maybe if you see my Korean version of improvising, totally different. And also I want to say, I have experience. I use the mother tongue in front of international people twice. First, in Chicago, there were 5 weeks intensive and worldwide people gathering, and 16 mother tongue we performed, and every audience was all international. And that was magical time. They get sensing more than 70 or 80%. But in Manila Festival, we performed in Korean in our team. Improv team performed in Korean in front of Filipinos audience. So they didn't get it. There were no laughing, no any reaction, interaction was not there. And after the show, they came and asked what was the story about and why the deaf person came back, and they didn't get it. So it was kind of, I felt like dead performing. So it was very different. So after then, I thought about it. The difference was audience, improvisers audience, I think they get it. They are more sensing very well. But non-improviser audience, if there are language difference or language barrier, it's really, really hard to get. That's my opinion. Thank you.
I think that's a gift for us to hear the reality of that haven't taken that in or thought about it as deeply as you were able to express. I wonder if there was a way to have that sort of that if your experience has been your mother tongue and English, how does it affect if you are able to have a third option? Do those things come together more, or do you have three improvisers based on the languages you're exposed to? But that's a good word for anyone who teaches in their native language to someone who doesn't have that. Felipe, you want to do a quick?
Yeah, just a little thing, because I faced that as well in Spanish and English, and then my question was, is there a universal language? And for me, that's why I really moved into the physical work, the working without words. And I've been very lucky to be able to perform in many different countries, and it's a thing, because the only thing that we all humans have in common is the body. You know, it's a body, and as actors is our main tool. You know, so yeah, just that.
Well, and as improvisers, at least most of us have also used gibberish as a way to speak without language and communicating whatever that emotional expression is another way where the language isn't necessarily a barrier. All right, Patty, we're gonna see how this goes here. Yeah, no, go ahead.
Adding with Felipe, the one thing that we have as humans is our body and our emotions.
Yeah. Well, let's go in that online world, and hopefully post-quarantine, when we are able to be together, to be physically present and emotionally present and humanly present as much as we can, apart from each other in our little rectangles, and hopefully very soon in whatever shape the world looks like after this. Thank you to all of you. Thank you to those of you who are in part one who had to drop off for so many reasons. But these are great people to connect with, and I am very excited to have all these new friends around the world too. So thank you, and thanks again for participating. Thanks to all the panelists who participated in this conversation. Really rich conversation, a lot of things to think about and chew on, and frankly, I think a lot to reflect on, not just now in this moment, but down the road, just think through as we practice this craft together, or as we find people coming online more, if you will, in the future. Let's do globalization of improv in a way that is affirming and inclusive and broadening, while also holding true to who we are along the way. I've been your host on this and the Improv Comedy Connection podcast, where you can also find the other conversations on the COVID-19 Improv Summit. We'll have one more recording session dealing with this topic, and I'll kind of leave it for that. But it has been a privilege to be a part of organizing this. If you'd like more information on it, you can go to improvcomedyconnection.com. The podcast is everywhere you find podcasts, and we do have this produced on video as well, if you'd like to see this or other episodes in the series. I've been your host, Whit Schiller. I'm an improviser out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I look forward to seeing you again. And again, thanks to all of our great panelists.